My Hero Academia chapter 213 has arrived at long last. We've been waiting for a very long time for this chapter, and so when this chapter came out, or rather when the spoilers came out, a lot of controversy really just spread across the internet and on Reddit, all these kind of places, on Twitter, everywhere literally. And people were either in love with this chapter based around the spoilers, or they were really hating on it to the point where they were actually saying they would drop the whole series because of it. And me personally, I knew I was never gonna drop the series no matter what it was, but now that I know what it is, the whole thing with the quirks that Deku really found out about, I'm not sure if I would say I'm in favor of it, but I'm certainly gonna be patient and see where it leads, because it could go either way at this point. It's not necessarily something bad, but yeah, let's talk about that. So in this chapter, Deku found out by this mysterious guy, which is obviously a previous inheritor of One for All, that he actually has the ability to utilize more than his own quirk. He can actually utilize the quirks of the previous users of One for All now that the supposed core of One for All has been starting to swell. And the only quirk we really know about is of course that said person's quirk, which is Black Whip, which obviously allows for grabbing and latching onto things, much like we saw him do against Monoma. Really saw how these black sort of tendrils came out of Deku and they were just latching onto everything. Of course, he didn't know how to control that power, he didn't know what it was, and in this chapter he found out exactly what's going on. He doesn't really know how to control it yet, of course, because he's only just learned about it. It's probably gonna take some time for Deku to really understand how to utilize his power properly, how to summon it, how to actually bring forth this particular quirk, because this is something that Deku has never really experienced before. He knew how to bring forth One for All because at that time that was the only quirk he really had, but now he has more than one quirk to really utilize. So how is he going to bring forth that particular quirk without accidentally tapping into One for All instead? Or maybe he's gonna use both at the same time. How is he going to learn how to really focus on both quirks at once without losing control of one of them? I think that's gonna be one of the bigger obstacles for Deku. At least I hope it's gonna take that route. Could go either way at this point, really. But then there are 5 other quirks that we don't know about, and I think the fact that there are so many other quirks is what really has some people in uproar, where they are actually saying they might drop the entire series. I think the amount of quirks is something that's going to come gradually, and I certainly think it's something that's not really gonna be too relevant for a very long time. I know I saw a theory by my friend Orpheus, I believe it was, and he mentioned that these 6 quirks might be taken from Deku at some point, because we have roughly 6 members of the League of Villains. We have Toga, we have Twice, we have Spinner, we have Dabi, we have Mr. Compress, we have Shigaraki. We have plenty members in the League of Villains to really distribute these quirks. So if All for One actually does break out of Tartarus one day, maybe he is going to extract these 6 quirks. He can't take One for All, of course, because that is a quirk that cannot be forcibly taken, but these other 6 powers might be able to be extracted. I'm not sure if that is the case, because they might be merged into One for All, kind of like how the original quirk turned into One for All. So it's possible that it cannot actually be taken from him, but at the end of the day, maybe they can somehow. We just don't know at this point. But that's just a theory. We don't really know if that's how things are going to go. It's a good theory though, but it just might not be possible, as I said. Now, one reason why I think people are being extremely overreactive when it comes to this whole thing, the whole controversy around these 6 quirks, is that this has actually been foreshadowed for a very long time. Even at the beginning of the story, we learned that, One for All was just this mixture of power, It was really something that just stockpiled and, it just pulled everything in, really. And also, I don't remember exactly what chapter this was, but it was definitely when the quirk was explained, when we got the insight on One for All, how One for All really was born. The whole thing with the original user when he had his unknown quirk and it mixed with his stockpiling power quirk, and that turned into One for All. Now, the fact that the original One for All quirk is actually a merged power kind of just foreshadows the idea that there might be other quirks that's also merged with One for All. Every user that had a quirk prior to receiving One for All, those quirks probably got merged with One for All. So there you have it. There is certainly a reason why this is not an ass pull, because there has been plenty of foreshadowing. People just didn't realize or forgot about it, or just chose not to care because they wanted to hate on the series. But apart from the quirk, you know, the match continues with Shinso and Monoma, you know, Class 1A versus Class 1B, and that is something that I really like seeing, you know, how it just went from this really deep understanding of the quirk to suddenly starting up the match again, which of course we didn't really see much of the match this chapter, but it's going to continue in chapter 214, where we're going to see Deku and Shinso's second round finally. You know, this is something that a lot of people have been waiting for a very long time, especially since this arc started, because we learned that, you know, eventually they were going to have to fight, and obviously because they were facing off each other directly, there was going to be a Deku versus Shinso match. It was just undeniable at that point, and we're finally getting it next week, and that is something that I'm extremely excited about, and I think a lot of people will agree when I say that, because a lot of people want to see more Shinso. In fact, a lot of people want to see Shinso get into the hero course, and I think this is a really good opportunity for him. You know, have him fight against someone like Deku, who's actually really good, and showcase his ability on the field, you know, make him prove that he's actually good enough to become a hero rather than being stuck in the general course. That is just something that I want to see, and I think it is going to be shown to us very soon. I think it is going to result in him being put into the hero course. Now, whether it's going to be put in Class 1A or Class 1B is of course very unclear at this point. I'm kind of guessing Class 1B simply because Monoma took an interest in Shinso, and obviously through that, you know, maybe Shinso can be someone apart from Kendo that can actually put Monoma in check, you know, because Shinso likes some part of Class 1A, whereas Monoma doesn't. So if he becomes friends with Monoma, he might be able to sway Monoma to look at Class 1A a little bit differently, you know, because at the moment Monoma is not really being very keen towards Class 1A, you know, he's being very aggressive in his behavior, mostly on the obnoxious side, you know, he's not really being offensive per se, he's more just being an ass, you know. And Shinso might actually be able to sway or change how Monoma look at Class 1A in his own way. I mean, I hope so at least. One last thing that I want to talk about before I end this review is how Deku really seemed to own up to his mistakes in this match, because we see when he comes back to senses, you know, before the match with Shinso is about to begin, we see how he actually notices how Ochako Uraraka is actually hurt after grasping Deku from this clusterfuck that happened a few chapters back when his power went out of control, and he's really trying to make up to Uraraka in his own way, which is shown by the fact that when Ochako is about to be taken by Shinso, he actually jumps right in front of her and takes the blow, or in this case, he just grabs his, you know, the whole cloth thing, the wrap thing that Shinso has, which he's obviously gotten from Aizawa, and he takes her place pretty much, and that is obviously what leads up to him fighting Shinso. But I really liked how he has questioned why she was hurt, or if she was hurt, you know, which kind of also goes to show you that he really noticed this, and he really realized that there was a mistake on his part because he lost control, and he probably wants to make up to her because of it. I just thought I'd mention that it's not really anything big in this chapter, but it is something that I'm sure a lot of people really noticed, and I just wanted to really bring that up, you know. But yeah, I'm probably gonna end the review here, so let me know what you think down below in the comments. Did you like this chapter, or did you absolutely hate this chapter? Because I'm sure there's gonna be mixed opinions about this whole quirk thing, you know, him learning that there are actually 6 quirks to be explored within One for All. Quite a controversial thing, but at the end of the day, I don't mind it as long as it's done properly and done correctly. So yeah, with that said, be sure to Detroit smash that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. This has been Chaotic Plus, and remember everyone, Toga is waifu, Toga is life.